In a world where one does not attain superpowers until the age of 18, a 25-year-old woman has not yet discovered her superpowers and will go to great lengths to unlock them. 25-year-old Jen attends a job interview and finds it horrifying to find that she can't lie because her interviewer's psychic powers force her to tell people the truth. Jen reveals that she has not yet gained her powers and has nothing to offer her company, so her assessor has her headed. Outside, Jen watches people put their superpowers to good use while she frantically looks around her. After sleeping with her Luke, she invites Luke to her half-sister Andy's 18th birthday party, but he is not interested. After returning from the bathroom, Jen sees Luke fly away and realizes they do this every time they finish sleeping. The next morning, Jen's roommate, Carrie Jackson, is watching the case at the attorney's office. Her employer, in order to settle the dispute between her ex-wife and her new wife, has allowed Mr. Greenham's soul to manifest and take over her body for a few minutes. Ask her to prove her power. After that, Jen found a cat in front of her apartment and got it. Inside, she spots Carrie's friend Cash in a tight homemade supersuit and teases him. An embarrassed Cash activates his power and rewinds time before Jen arrives. He quickly closes the door unnoticed by her girlfriend and lies that he was happy to keep her out of his room. Later, Carrie arrives and sobs, sharing that the guest is always mad at her and that she is not deceased. Jen urges her to stop, but she refuses, saying Carrie has to support Cash, who is still looking for her job. Carrie reassures her friend that her job at her law firm pays well, but she complains that she is only being taken advantage of. Jen tries to comfort her, but Carrie misunderstands and instead comforts her by saying that her true power is to be herself. To cheer them up, Carrie calls in Adolf Hitler to mock him. Jen then received a text message from her date and left. Jen goes to a restaurant to meet Gordon. Gordon refused to shake hands with her without her gloves because he could make people come with his touch. Gordon, she admitted, found out when he asked for a handshake after beating her father in a soccer game on her father's 60th birthday. Elsewhere, Cash and Carrie are on their way to the pizzeria when the former finds his girlfriend struggling with her heels. He offered her her shoes and decided to walk around wearing her socks instead of her. Suddenly, an invisible man takes Carrie's cell phone and demands her wallet. Cash throws his wallet at him, grabs Carrie and tries to escape. Jen and Gordon get back to her, but Gordon insists on using her gloves when touching her to prove he can satisfy her woman without her own powers. Minutes pass and aboard Jen feigns come to finish it off. When Jen was about to kiss her goodnight, Gordon tucked his pillow in so he wouldn't touch it. Later that night, Cash decided he wanted to become a vigilante because he had previously felt the exhilaration of fighting off intruders. Carrie is reluctant about the idea because it's not her lucrative profession, but Cash seems confident in her plan. The next morning, when Jen tried to touch Gordon, the cat jumped up next to him. At first he tries to scare the cat away, but ends up allowing the cat to tap Gordon. Gordon is then awakened by the cat's cries and leaves. He claims their relationship will not work out. Jen is upset that he didn't touch her. Afterwards, Jen, Carrie and Cash have breakfast and go over possible names for their cat, deciding on funny and offensive names. Jen finds herself 3 hours late for work and orders Cash to turn back time. Cash insists he can't go back that far and that his powers are limited, so Jen agrees to at least have an hour to eat lunch. Jen works for a costume rental company called Party Hamlet, so she wears a ball gown to work. She is asking her colleague Tim to inflate her balloons for Andy's party. At that time, Angela, the store manager who looks young despite being 56 years old, approached her and asked about her balloon. She explains that Jen is for her half-sister's birthday, but her co-workers complain about them turning 18 and wish they hadn't gotten that power. She hopes later, in her cab, her positive driver wants to tell Jen how she died, but she decides not to. Her shocked Jen got a call from her father and tried to ask more questions. After she jokes, her father instructs her not to ruin Andy's night with her competitive spirit and asks her to say hello to her mother. When she arrived, the taxi driver told her that she should stay away from bears. Jen is upset that her mother, Mary, has already bought balloons. Andy approaches her half-sister and tells her that her position at Greenwich Conservatory has been decided, but Jen thinks she's bragging. Her Andy tries to figure out what her own power will be, but her bitter Jen tells her she may never get that power. Later, the two bicker over Jen's lack of power when Mary asks for help handling the tablet. Jen desperately wonders how someone with the ability to control technology can't understand it. Mary's partner Ian also joins them, using her ability to sense her emotions to try and calm Mary down. After blowing out her birthday candle, Andy waits for her powers to manifest, but is disappointed when they don't. Mary tries to comfort Andy and she tells him it may be weeks before she shows up, but Jen mocks her. An angry Andy walks into the kitchen and Mary follows him. Ian then tells Jen to go to the Discovery Clinic to unlock her powers, as it worked for his cousin. Sometime later, when Andy pries open his refrigerator door, he realizes he has superpowers. While Andy entertains guests with his abilities, an outraged Jen walks away with a bottle of alcohol. She then got a text message from Luke and she immediately headed to his apartment. Jen hears a woman's voice and forces her way into his apartment. There she met Olivia, his beautiful date for the night. She believes Jen uses her powers to keep her beautiful, but Olivia says she rarely uses her powers, and she believes that she has always hinted that she was beautiful, much to Jen's dismay. After Luke lets Olivia fly, Jen forces Luke to take Olivia as well. Luke then puts her on the floor and tells her that he loves himself before he loves her others. Later, when Jen returns home, she calls her father and laments her lack of strength. Her father comforts her and tells her daughter that one day she will gain power. When Jen opened her bedroom door, she saw Carrie calling her father and hinting that her father was dead. The next morning, Jen and Carrie go to the Discovery Clinic for a checkup. However, Jen is disappointed to learn that the package is too expensive and decides to release her powers instead. A few days later, Jen, Carrie and Cash plan to use their powers by causing stress. They go to an Indian restaurant, where Jen orders the spiciest dish on the menu. A flushed and sweaty Jen runs into the store to buy some milk, only to run into Luke buying things for his date with Olivia. He becomes increasingly concerned about her appearance, but Jen ignores it and dashes out into the aisle to get her drink. However, the owner says he has to buy the gallon first, and Jen notices the owner in the CCTV footage. The next day, Carrie and Cash accompany Jen to work, where Cash chooses a vigilante outfit. Angela approaches them and finds out that they are helping Jen discover her powers. Angela then tells her she realized her abilities when she witnessed her husband having sex with another woman, and she believes stress may be the cause. Agree. Carrie comes up with an idea when Angela leaves. Carrie then takes Jen to the dentist, but her friend quickly runs away. Carrie drags Jen in and calms her down. A few minutes later, when Jen entered the office, she heard horrifying music. The dentist tells Jen that it is her power that allows people to create their own soundtracks around them, and she suspects Jen is afraid of her dentist. At her home, Cash calls an advertising agency to have a vigilante billboard installed. Meanwhile, the cat suddenly transforms into a human and even struggles to walk upright. He tries to call Cash and scratches his bedroom door to get his attention. Cash hears scratching and opens the door, but all he sees is a cat. He takes the animal to Jen's room and continues the call. During an oral examination at the dentist, the doctor is surprised to hear Jen's horrific music turn into smooth jazz. Jen apologized and to ease her embarrassment, her dentist said her teeth were beautiful. However, her doctor confirmed that some of her teeth needed fillings, and her Jen soundtrack quickly switched to creepy sounds. An upset dentist gives Jen medicine to ease her anxiety. Jen initially objects, because he needs fear to show his power. However, he takes the medicine as soon as he sees the syringe. In the waiting room, Cash calls Carrie on a walkie-talkie and asks if she should start her plan B. She assures Carrie that plan A is working. When a dazed Jen shows up, a bewildered Carrie tells Cash to start plan B because plan A has failed. Later, as the two wait outside, Cash, disguised as a masked IRA terrorist, appears and stuffs Jen into the trunk of her car in an attempt to induce stress. While the couple is buying lunch, Jen leaves a voice message confessing her love for Luke, but he is mentally unreachable. At the deli, Cash and Carrie are discussing what to have for lunch. Unbeknownst to her, the car is towed away. After a while, they find the car gone and search it. Carrie calls Jen to find out where she is, but her friend keeps sending photos of Philip Schofield. Her annoyed, she yelled at Jen to send her pinned location. Cash then reveals that the car belonged to his mother and he cannot pick it up from the parking lot because he does not have a driver's license. After sneaking into the confiscated premises, Cash realizes he doesn't have his car keys. Carrie also noticed that after 4 hours Jen's medication had worn off. As soon as Jen wakes up from her dazed state, she panics and demands that they take her out. Cash tries to open the trunk but fails, so Carrie asks Jen to call Andy because she needs someone strong to get her out. Later, Andy arrives and smugly asks Jen to do a good job of asking her out on a date. With no other choice, when Jen complies with her wishes, her half-sister easily rips the boot lid off and throws it away. When Jen tries to hit her, Carrie stops him and thanks Andy for his help. Then a car horn goes off and Jen is appalled to see Mary and Ian there trying to drive her home. Mary then remembers leaving Luke a voice message about her and warns Jen. Meanwhile, Cash demands Carrie pay for the damage to her mother's car. Jen then asks her mother to delete the message, but Mary accidentally plays the voicemail on her Bluetooth speaker in her car, causing everyone to hear the embarrassing message. Andy tells Jen to spam her to distract her, and Mary suggests sending her a suggestive photo. Jen had sent Luke some teasing selfies as soon as he got home, but suddenly noticed that the cat had turned into a man. Initially terrified, she flees her room, but she eventually concludes that she may have turned the cat into a human. When the couple rushes to her, she says she has a magical treasure chest, which she claims can transform animals into humans. However, she claims that Nico Otoko is a shapeshifter who remains in cat form. Afterwards, the naked man hugged Cash, relieved that others could see him. The trio then interrogate him, but Catman suffers from amnesia and can only remember going to school and getting a job until he frequently switches between being a cat and being a human. Increase. He also recounted how watching Spurs' 4-2 victory over Arsenal in a football game saw the trio realize they had been stuck in a cat condition all his 3 years. Afterwards, Nico Otoko lay on Jen's bed, distraught at the fact. Cash says he books an Uber for him, but Jen says he can't afford to disappoint him and he wants to stay. But Cash is adamant that he will only stay until he realizes who the man is. Later, when Carrie gets up to make some tea, Jen gets a text message from Luke saying he likes the picture but the voicemail is weird. When Jen went outside later that night, she found a dog. As her dog owner turned the corner, Jen quickly showed her breasts. She quickly covered herself, explaining to her confused bystanders that she just wanted to make sure her breasts weren't magical. The next day, at breakfast, Jen and Carrie watch Catman wrestle with a can opener. Cash comes and tries to help him but fails. Later at work, Jen encounters an angry customer with a Margaret Thatcher mask taped to her face. Angela then scolds Jen for her lack of customer service. Jen urges Angela to fire her, but Angela sees potential in her and she wants to make her her manager when she dies. However, Jen told her that this job was temporary, but Angela pointed out that Tim said the same thing, and that she has been working there for 7 years. Elsewhere, Kathy allows her to take over Valerie Gold's soul during her trial. Valerie refuses to sign a label deal to play her music in all cruise ship elevators, instead hoping to make a comeback against her manager's wishes. At home, Nico Otoko enters one of the rooms when Cash tells him to leave because he is interviewing a potential vigilante member. Catman wants to learn to turn back into a human, so he asks you to watch the process. Cash accepts and explains that he's doing it for the town, but Catman is only doing it because it gives Jen the illusion that she's in control of her poor existence. He says he thinks so. After the trial, the manager asked Carrie to work part-time at his label, which she enthusiastically accepted. At her home, applicants come in one by one to test their skills. One of the suitors, Seb, can summon sea creatures but he cannot command them, but she claims she has a wealthy father. Another interviewee, Aide, can walk through solid objects, but her hand got stuck in the wall. Randall can 3D print objects from her buttocks and demonstrates her ability by squeezing out her figures. The final applicant, Gregor, is a speedster who runs to the Tate Modern to pick up a postcard to show off his skills. Afterwards, Carrie enters a recording studio, where she calls in famed 80s country singer Cole Callahan and is tasked with completing the recording of his song. Later, Carrie calls Jen to come to the studio for emotional support and promises her a pay cut. With an idea, Jen tells his roommate that he needs someone who is human and does good business. Then comes Jen, who claims she is from Jen Reagan Talent Management and that Carrie is her client. While negotiating with her manager, she is shocked when the label offers Carrie £300,000 for a performance. Jen then asked her manager to wait outside, and two of her roommates were happy with the offer. At his home, as Cash was preparing the living room for his first vigilante meeting, Catman handed him a dead pigeon as a treat. A terrified Cash sends him out grocery shopping, against Jen's orders not to let him outside. When Carrie invites Colt into the studio, she finds Colt a pleasure to work with and an extreme misogyny. Meanwhile, Cash welcomes a new member as Gregor takes over and writes on the board. They talk about what crimes to fight, but Cash interrupts, feeling that Speedster is taking over the leadership position. However, he lies that he was just looking for the marker, so Randall offers to 3D print the marker for him. Elsewhere, Nico Otoko suffers an overwhelming experience shopping for feminine hygiene products and faints. The vigilantes then discuss what they will do when rescuing the woman. Gregor volunteers to be the leader because he respects all women, but Cash insists that he is better suited because he knows more about female anatomy. At the store, A salesperson reads a book on female anatomy to help Nico Otoko understand more about sanitary products. At the studio, a rude Colt asks Jen to help him with an old song to bring back his memory, and he disappears. Carrie read the text and found much of it to be racist and misogynistic. She tells Jen that she is uncomfortable with the performance, but Jen encourages her to keep singing for the money. Carrie then modifies the lyrics slightly, claiming that Colt wouldn't notice while Jen went for a massage. At the apartment, Seb writes the female anatomy on a board to prove Cash is an expert. Luckily, Nico Man returns from the shop and uses his newfound knowledge of female anatomy to help Cash label the illustrations. In the studio, Colt sings Carrie's revised lyrics and is angered by the changes. Jen and Carrie then return home depressed after being fired from their label. Jen is proud that her housemate has stood up for her faith, but she is still disappointed that she missed the chance to earn £300,000. He then hears noises from the other room and finds Cash and Catman playing a board game he invented. Later that night, one of the suitors, who happens to be able to transform into a magnet, returns to the apartment to retrieve her umbrella. Suddenly, Nico Otoko sticks to a woman, and she flippantly remarks that her woman might have a microchip. Jen's hilarious and adventurous quest to unlock her superpowers in a world where everyone else seems to have them. Join her and her friends as they navigate through quirky encounters, dating mishaps, and even form a vigilante group, all while learning the power of embracing their true selves.